Good afternoon, and welcome to this April edition of Town Hall. I'm Marco Garcia.
And I'm Dave Wooten. Each first Wednesday of the month, we present Cambridge Mayor Andrew Bradshaw and a rotating slate of two of the five city commissioners to address issues important to us all.
And this month, we have Commissioners Cephas and Jameson Harrington joining Mayor Bradshaw here in the spatially distant WHCP studios.
Marco, in just a moment, we'll get right to their introductory remarks. First, a reminder that your questions can be posed in the chat session, and we'll get to as many as possible. We've already received a number of topics in advance from the Cambridge Association of Neighborhoods, the Dorchester Chamber, and the news teams at WHCP, the Dorchester Star, and Dorchester Banner.
Thanks, Dave. Mayor Bradshaw, welcome back to today's Town Hall. There are many challenges and opportunities facing the city. What is at the forefront of your focus today?
Marco, Dave, thank you. Commissioner Cephas and Harrington, thanks for joining us today as well. You know, this has been a difficult week for me as mayor, for the commissioners, and for the city of Cambridge. Since April 1st, we've seen 4 citizens of Cambridge die in an untimely fashion, 3 as a result of a house fire, and 1 who was brutally shot and murdered on Monday night. It's hit me hard as mayor, but you run for public office not just for the positive things that come with it, but also to face these kinds of challenges. And though it is difficult and it's been hurtful, I'm glad I'm here in this seat. And I'm glad that we've got the commissioners that we do so that we can face the issues that led to these losses of life head on. And we can find solutions, whether that be solutions for the violence we see in our community or solutions for the issues that existed that led to the house fire that led to the deaths of Kaylin Downs and Matt Woodard and Addie Narwald. We're going to face these, and we're going to face them head on, and we're going to find solutions, through our building code, through supporting our fire and police departments, through working with our code enforcement officers. We'll find solutions for that. And likewise with the violence, with the death of DeJour Sorrell, we are going to work with Cambridge Police, but not just with Cambridge Police. We're going to get out in the community, and we're going to meet with community leaders and with the young people that are often involved with this violence, and we're going to work to find solutions so that we don't have to have another week in the city of Cambridge where we're saying goodbye to 4 of our friends and neighbors. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Cephas, the Commission President.
Hi, I would like to thank for this opportunity to speak to our constituents for the city. First, I would just like to give a moment of silence for those that we've lost in this past week. Thank you. And essentially, just to echo everything that our mayor has said, this is definitely a difficult time. This is the part of the responsibility of, being a representative of our constituents in the city. We have our good moments, and then we have our moments where we struggle. I'm extremely optimistic that, we will be able to find solutions to try to prevent these situations from happening more frequently. For example, with the house fire, there are definite solutions with that. We do have a code enforcement officer, and we do have fire safety standards that we have to uphold. So as far as specifically speaking, as far as that is concerned, smoke detectors, they save lives. Internal home inspections, it actually saved lives. As far as the other loss of life that we experienced, that's going to take the community. So what that means is if something happened, I know there's this rule where it's called no snitching, but how can we solve crimes? How can we prevent crimes? If there are witnesses, if there's people that know that is happening, and they're not sharing the information with the proper authorities. So it's going to take a team effort. It's going to take a community wide effort. And I will say, although this is a hurtful time, I'm extremely optimistic that I know we'll be able to make some grounds to move our city in the right direction. Thank you.
Now, Commissioner Jameson Harrington, Ward 3.
Well, thank you for having us on. And, I share a lot of the sentiments our mayor does, and Ms. Cephas does as well. I think we're all on the same team, not just the council, but the community as well. We all want, people to be happy, safe, and productive here in Cambridge. And it's going to take teamwork, not just from the council itself, but all of us coming together to reach the goals that we want to see. And I think with the more people getting vaccinated and hopefully COVID restrictions easing up, our community services can be more effective. We've got a lot of great people in the community, and like the Y and the Empowerment Center, places like that have just been held back by COVID. So I'm thinking and hoping once those restrictions ease up, we can get more effective help and support for our community. So thank you.
All right, guys. So our first question for the day is, does the recent experience with the tragic fire on Pine Street argue for a staffed, centrally located downtown fire department? Balloon framing density is greatest downtown.
So I guess I'll speak to it first. The issue with the fire that occurred on High Street, though it was a balloon frame structure, that was not largely contributory to it. At the time that the first firefighters and police made visual with the structure, the fire was contained to the second floor, and particularly to 2 rooms and a hallway. The unfortunate thing is that the hallway that it was entering into was the stair hall, and that stair hall was the only egress from the 3rd floor. And so essentially folks on the 3rd floor or on the 2nd floor were unable to make access to those stairs. So in this case, really the issue wasn't that the fire spread up through the framing. The issue was that the point of escape was in some ways blocked, it would appear. With regard to the fire department, I've gone back and I've listened to the recordings. I've spoken to the fire chief. I've spoken to some of the firefighters that were on scene. I'm a firefighter, but for reasons that I still don't know, for whatever reason, the alert and all the phone calls I received, they didn't reach me. But what I know with the response, by the time the dispatch was made and the first firefighters were passing the location to get on the apparatus and get back to scene, the fire was well advanced. There was fire out the front 2 or 3 windows. The fire had not advanced to the 3rd floor, but even within about 2.5 to 3 minutes after dispatch was made, conditions had deteriorated in the structure so badly that I'm not certain that cutting the response time by 2 to 3 minutes would have made much of a difference in this case. A good friend of mine is asked some questions to a neighbor. Another nearby neighbor posted online about their experience. It would sound as though in this case the fire was just very well advanced before anyone dialed 911. People heard noises, people smelled some things, but there wasn't really a second thought as to what it was. A few pops, someone thought perhaps it was some fireworks in the distance, that kind of thing. And so what could have been maybe a call to the 911 center within a few minutes took much longer than normal. And by the time the fire department was on scene, the fire was advancing from the 2nd floor into the 3rd floor. I think that having a downtown location would have helped a bit, but having a paid fire department in this case would not have made a significant difference. You're talking about at most from the time of dispatch 2 to 3 minutes, and with the advancement that the fire had, it's just tragic. But unfortunately, I don't know that it would have made a difference. And in my experience as a firefighter and the discussions I've had with much more experienced firefighters, it was just so well advanced. It had a 10 or 15 minute head start from when it was dispatched.
To expand on that issue, we have a question submitted by Teresa Stafford, and she asked, would a code have helped this situation to make sure that all houses have adequate exit access?
I'll let the commissioners go with that and then also speak to it.
I guess I think that would help in most situations. There was, I believe, a staircase up to the second floor on the outside, if I'm remembering correctly. But there was only that one staircase internally for the third floor. So yeah, I think something like that would help in that situation, and also having, as a family, a plan for escape for things like this. I mean, you never want to think about it happening, but I think it's something the fire department maybe could help with and help families plan. If there's an emergency, what's our best route of escape? What should we do? I think it's a two-pronged approach there.
Well, I would like to jump in and answer the question that was asked by Dr. Stafford. I would say that if we had internal inspections, at least the city could officially say that, that we exhausted every single opportunity to make sure that everyone that lived in that house were living up to code. But, it's apparent, and we discussed it so many times, that due to Ordinance 995 being repealed, and due to the fact, that, of the internal inspections, that the city doesn't have anything on legislation, that our code enforcement officers can actually enforce, we very well can say, yes, absolutely. If we have some sort of code or ordinance on file giving us permission, to do some sort of internal inspections, whether it's triannually, whether it's yearly, it very well could have saved the lives of those that were lost. I don't know for certain if they were missing smoke detectors. I don't know. I don't want to say they didn't have them. I can't speak on that matter. But, the city, we don't have anything on record saying they did or did not. So that's why it's extremely important that, that we have internal inspections before any family moves into any house, to make sure that it's safe for them, as well as everyone, within that household. So we need to get working on that immediately. I've had quite a few conversations, as far as with our city attorney expressing the importance of that. But I've been told that it's a controversial. When people are losing their lives, I don't care about what's controversial. We need to do what we need to do to save, to save the loss of life in our city. And I just hope y'all will excuse me for fumbling over my words, but this has really been weighing down on me, knowing that we did not do everything possible that we could have done. And when I say we, I know I'm using the word very freely because we've only been in office 90 days. But when I say we, I'm speaking as far as every commissioner, every mayor, every code enforcement officer who has ever been in place up until this time. We have not done everything we could have done to ensure that this did not happen to this family, and also to ensure moving forward it will not happen again. There is some good news. That, the good news is the Housing Task Force, they did officially have their first meeting. I believe it was last week. So, that actually is a good step forward, with our current mayor and our current city commission, is that, we are trying our best to have steps to move forward, to have that happen. And also we're still putting the pressure on our city attorney, expressing to him that we need this legislation. It needs to happen. It's not necessary to have a work session. We know it's needed. All the nearby cities are doing it. We just need to do it. Thank you.
And I'm going to piggyback off of what the two commissioners said as well and speak to this a little bit further. So I know that there was at least one smoke detector in the house, and I know that because the following day at about 1:30, I went out there with Chief Lewis, Cambridge Police, Chief Pritchett, Rescue Fire Company, and it was still sounding. So we know that there was at least one, but the state mandates that there is to be a smoke detector in each sleeping area within a dwelling, no matter what that dwelling is, whether it be an apartment, whether it be a condo, a townhome, a single family home. I don't care if you're renting a room above the garage from somebody. State law is that there is to be a smoke detector in every sleeping space so that when something happens and you're asleep, you've got a chance to get out of the house. And if you're renting, state law mandates and requires that the landlord place them and ensure they're maintained. And it's not hard to maintain them because they come with a 10-year battery. So, something that we're going to work on. I talked in the campaign. I know that the commission president talked in the campaign as well, and I think Commissioner Harrington as well, that we were all in support of internal rental inspections. And there was some pushback, and I told folks it would take a tragedy for people to realize the importance of this, and it's taken a tragedy to get to the point where this is going to move forward. But going beyond that, we've got to, in this case, I've seen video, I've seen photos from in the home prior to the fire. It was fairly well maintained. I don't think it had all the required smoke detectors based on the fact that we had one sounding, but it did appear to be fairly well maintained. But you can ride around Cambridge right now and you can point out home after home after home, and there were mostly rentals that are not well maintained. And another tragedy like this could happen next week because there are no minimum livability standards. There are no mandated annual or triannual or biannual or whatever it may be interior inspections for rental properties. And if people are going to use the living space of others to make a living, to as their job, then part of what they've got to do is follow the standards that are going to be set into place. The commission president spoke to the point with the city attorney that we've struggled to get some cooperation with drafting language. She is correct about that, unfortunately. And something to note is that we are putting out city legal services for a request for proposals. And we are reviewing whether we're going to continue forward with this attorney. But in the meantime, I've spoken to the attorney. There has been some difficulty, I'll say, in moving forward with the language. So I reached out to the Maryland Municipal League, which is an organization that aids cities in the state of Maryland. And they've provided me with information with regard to rental inspections and rental registrations statewide. And we're going to move forward with those with developing language so that can be put into place. Additionally, I've been looking at what some other counties do. Talbot County, for example, has a very broad minimum livability standard by which dwellings are going to be judged, and it's something that we should be looking at adopting. There are homes in this city that I would not want my worst enemy to live in, so there's absolutely no reason that we can't be adopting the same kind of standards as our neighbors.
Thank you, guys. We have another question from Dory Weber. It says, was a business operating legally in the rental home, and are smoke detectors available through the fire department, and a fine issued to renter if battery is removed?
It's my understanding that a business may have been operating out of a second floor room. I don't believe they were licensed, but without interior inspections, there's no way for us to find that out, unless someone had made a report of it. Smoke detectors are available through the fire department. They're funded through a state program, and that's what limits us. The fire department would love to give detectors out to absolutely everyone in the city of Cambridge that needs one. Unfortunately, the state program requires that they only be provided to homeowners and not renters, because state law is that landlords have to provide smoke detectors. So the state has found that because landlords have that requirement, the tenant should not be reaching out to the fire department for those detectors. It limits what can be done in a community like this, and unfortunately, the limitation is especially harsh because if it's found by the state of Maryland that these detectors are being provisioned outside the requirements, then the funding's lost and we can't do it moving forward. So that's what leads to such an important situation with regard to interior inspections. If landlords aren't posting the detectors in the spaces they're supposed to be in, then they've absolutely got to be held accountable for that. Finally, with regard to the smoke detectors, most smoke detectors now are developed and built with a tamper-proof 10-year battery. If a tenant's removing the battery, then the interior inspections would find that, and that's why we've got to get interior inspections in place now. It's not just about holding landlords accountable. It's about ensuring that tenants aren't destroying the properties as well. It's about ensuring that the tenants aren't removing a battery from a smoke detector, and it's about ensuring that their lives are going to be secured and safe as well. It's something that would be to benefit to all parties.
And I'll chime in and just say, the inspections, the only people that should be afraid of them are bad landlords and bad tenants. If you're doing everything right, you've got nothing to worry about. It's in your best interests.
All right, we'll move on to another subject here. We haven't had any questions that have been brought in, so we'll address recycling. What can be done to keep recycling in operation?
So, to clarify for some folks, the city of Cambridge provided space on Leonard's Lane opposite the Public Works Department where the county, Dorchester County, placed recycling containers for many years. For many years, it was recycling that required that you go through and sort the items, and there were individual pockets for glass or cardboard or paper or whatever it may be. At some point in the last few years, the county contracted with Republic Services for single stream recycling so that items could all be tossed into the container, and then at a facility they'd be sorted subsequently. Typically, from what I understand, having researched this some, it's done by folks that are in prison, or it's not a job that's high paying by any means. So we provide that space for many years. There have been more and more complaints because the site gets overfilled. There aren't enough containers, and then there's trash blowing in the wind. About a week and a half ago, there was a letter that was sent to Commission President Cephas from the County Council President, dated March 23rd, but sent March 25th, stating that recycling services at the Leonard's Lane location would be ended by Dorchester County on April 1st. So we had less than a week notice to try to get something into place, which is darn near impossible. So for the momentary time, that location is going to be out of service. However, the county is still maintaining a recycling center behind Walmart off of Chesapeake Drive, as well as the Secretary Transfer Station, the Golden Hill Transfer Station, the Beulah Landfill, and Benz and Hurlock. None of that's convenient to citizens of the city of Cambridge outside of perhaps the one behind Walmart. But we were left with such short notice that it's been problematic to say the least. Now, the bins were not removed on April 1st, and I reached out this morning to see what was going on there because for whatever reason, Republic Services was of the understanding that perhaps the city was going to take full responsibility for it, but there was no contract or anything like that in place. So we're reviewing it. We're going to have to find answers and get something in place quickly, and we're going to. But the manner in which this was handled has made things very difficult for the city to get something in place to allow for continuity of service.
Thank you. And Our next question is, how much would it cost to switch to trash pickup once per week, recycling once per week?
Commission President, you want to speak on that one, and then I'll chime in as well.
As far as an exact price, as far as what the cost would be, we don't have that information as of right now. I did reach out to a few companies, but in order for us to officially get those numbers, we would have to have an official RFP in place. A previous company who put a proposal in maybe about, I don't know, around 2017. I believe that was Bates Trucking. They did send us some information, but that's based off of 2017 numbers. So from my understanding of it, in order for us to get an exact number, we would officially have to have an RFP put in, so they can effectively put in a bid, that we can legitimately consider. Something else that we want to consider as a city, and I'm not quite sure why we decided to take our refusal services from the city, is we need to get our trucks running again. I spoke with some of our employees of the Department of Public Works, and they want to take the responsibility of getting the garbage from the residents, and they're not quite understanding why that was taken from them. So we have the people, we're capable. The only thing we're lacking at this moment is equipment, and that's something that we're trying to work out at this moment. It's not something that we can do tomorrow or even next year. It could take a couple of years, but I can tell you, essentially, that is the goal, that we want to get back at doing this in-house, so we don't have to contract the services.
And to add to that, that was something that I looked at particularly. Noting that there's going to be a large amount of federal funding coming to the city of Cambridge, some of the capital purchases for the equipment is going to be much less difficult. It's something that we can get into place, and then we can get a capital improvement or capital replacement program in place, so that we're not scrambling when it's time to replace a truck. I've looked at what other municipalities, other cities do on the Eastern Shore. We're the only ones that have twice a week trash pickup. Other places will let you buy a second can, and they won't charge you extra for the second can. But we're the only place that I can find on Delmarva that's doing pickup twice a week. Now, many places do pickup one day a week and recycling one day a week, and they provide a second can for the recycling, and it goes to single source, either to, again, oftentimes a prison job program, or a recycling center, like there's one in Wicomico called Eagle Recycling that handles some of this. But by and large, most municipalities, at least over 5,000 or 6,000 residents on the Eastern Shore, do their own trash pickup. And in every case I can find, they're doing it once a week. I'm not certain what led to the decision at the time to go away from municipal trash pickup and contracting it. I know that people have not been happy with the contractor since that occurred. And there's a lack of accountability, because it's difficult to get through to the contractor to explain the issues. I mean, I myself, and please don't take this as me in some way expecting different treatment, but I, as mayor, can't get reliable trash pickup. So I'm certain that anyone anywhere in the city can't get it. If I can't, or the commissioners can't, then there's no way that anyone else is either. So, if we explore different things, if we renegotiate the contract, if we bring it in house, no matter what we do, it's got to be done so there's accountability with regard to how the pickup's occurring. And I'll be honest with you, I think it can also be done in a fashion, particularly now with automated trucks and things like that, that could be at the very least cost neutral for the city, and may be able to turn a small enough profit to contribute to capital replacement and other improvements for the service. So definitely something to be explored, and something that we're going to be looking at. Unfortunately, the contract with the current supplier auto renews on April 15th, and the program renews on July 1st, so not enough time for us to get equipment if we were to bring it in-house, and also a difficult time frame to put out RFP. So we'll have to look at what we do, and essentially the decision will be made over the course of the next few months in 2021 so that we're ready in 2022 to do whatever's necessary with regard to changes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Just you.
There's a time for a noise ordinance in the daytime.
Commissioner Harrington?
I can see and I can understand where people are coming at with the noise ordinance. I'm pretty sure we all know what it might be referring to. I think there are ways to handle these things without an ordinance, but I can also see the arguments and benefits of such an ordinance, such as allowing, events and restaurants to have like exceptions, things like that. And I think, the first thing we should always do is just talk to the people that might be causing noise issues, and start there. But it would really depend on the wording of that ordinance.
I would like to touch on this question. Is it time for a daytime noise ordinance for Cambridge like many other municipalities have? I'm going to be honest, I don't know if other municipalities have a daytime noise ordinance, but I'm a little bit of an out of a box type of thinker. I've lived in many places, Washington, D.C., San Diego, California. Like noise is culture. I look at it from the perspective of if there isn't anyone that lives nearby and if it's not affecting them, what's the issue? I don't get what the issue is. So that's that's how I feel as far as that subject is concerned. Now as far as like dusk, if something's loud and someone's trying to get rest because they need to get to work the next day, and if it is actually in a neighborhood, okay, I get it. But during the daytime, you're going to hear all types of noise. You're going to hear tractor trailers, hitting their brakes. You're going to hear horns. So I think we all have to try to understand that that we have various people that live here. They have various missions, and I just believe that if it's not disturbing any neighborhoods, allow people to enjoy their freedoms. I think some are trying to be a little bit too controlling of the freedoms of others, and I think we need to be respectful of it. As long as it's not disturbing any residential neighborhoods, if it's in a commercial area, what's the big deal? If it's bothering you, put your window up and just keep going. So that's all I need to say about that before I dig myself in a hole.
No, I think that with regard to any ordinance on this, I think doing it with a residential overlay versus a citywide ordinance would be something that would have to be explored at the very least. Because the expectation that should be had for someone that's on Route 50 is going to be different than the expectation for someone on Chop Tank Avenue, for example. Likewise, the expectation should be different for someone on Moores Avenue than on Washington Street itself, or different for someone on Bailey Avenue versus Route 16. So if it's handled for core residential neighborhoods, I think the situation differs from in those heavier commercial and heavier traffic corridors. So if one is set into place, I think that's got to be an understanding that's got to be had.
Thank you, guys. Our next question is, what are your top 3 priorities for immediate needs that can be addressed with the infusion of COVID relief funds?
Commissioner President.
Yes, I am very pleased to answer first. I will say, well, most definitely, like $5 million this year, $5 million next year. Why can't we ensure that our essential employees receive the pay they deserve? I'm certain there's a way we can work it out to, where all the funds aren't spent there. That's a lot of money, but I'm pretty sure we can make good on a lot of promises that our essential employees have had over the course of the years they've been employed through the city, and they haven't appropriately received raises as agreed upon when they were hired. Our nonprofits have essentially struggled through our pandemic, and our nonprofits, they are the leaders of our community. We have to invest in them because the weather's about to warm up. It's about to get hot. People are about to get busy. So if we don't give the nonprofits the resources necessary to make sure that our youth have activities, even some of our adults who believe they're youth have activities, this summer is going to be out of control. So don't have a third one yet, but I can tell you my top two is our city employees. We definitely have to make sure our city employees are taken care of, and our nonprofits. Thank you.
Commissioner Harrington.
So I'm going to have to agree with the commission president. Our employees deserve raises, not just police, but also the public works as well. We're going to lose valuable employees if we can't pay competitive salaries. That's just a fact. The other area I'd like to see addressed is some of our infrastructure. Some of our sidewalks, we have streets without sidewalks, and that's just a big safety concern right there. And then there's simple things like just marking crosswalks. People do not drive as slow as they should in Cambridge, and that's a serious issue. And I know the Ward 1 commissioner would like to hear this, but traffic calming for some of our streets before someone gets hurt. And then a third area I'd like to see is some more investment in some of our community parks, and maybe bringing some youth programs out there as well, because people take advantage of those, especially after COVID. I mean, it's the best place to be where you can space out and, let some energy out. So I think those would be some good areas to address and start with.
I look at this infusion of money in two ways. One, I look at it as something that can be used to supplement some of the desires that we have, some of the things that we've seen, some of the issues that we know exist. But the other thing I see it as is a bit of a reset for the city in this case. For many years, and really for the last decade, maybe longer, we've not had a plan in place for the saving of taxpayer funds for the replacement of needed equipment, whether that be trash trucks, and that's part of what led to the contracting of trash services with a private provider, because they were going to have to purchase several trucks all at once and couldn't afford it, whether that be the fire department, whose ladder truck has been out of service roughly 7 of the last 12 months, and which may have made a difference at some point with the fire that occurred, or with another fire at some point. We've got huge expenses that aren't being addressed, and this gives us an opportunity to address them at once, to make the purchase, not to finance, and then allow us to save taxpayer funds, so when the time for replacement comes again, we're not caught flat-footed. So my number one priority is about replacement of capital items, whether they be the ladder truck, whether they be the rescue squad for rescue fire company, whether they be some police cars, whether they be new trash trucks, whether they be other city vehicles that are well past their usable life but are still in service and are costing the city darn near as much to repair as it would to replace, and with a much less capable outcome with the outdated equipment. So that's a large priority for me. But then moving on from that, because that's only going to take a small portion of $10.9 million. Moving on from that's going to be support of nonprofits, has been said, and also infrastructure improvements. Now, there may be a federal infrastructure bill that's going to come down the pike as well. We'll see. If that's the case, we need to have shovel-ready projects. During the Great Recession, 2007, 2008, 2009, Cambridge was caught flat-footed and did not have shovel-ready projects, and thusly take advantage of the federal money that was provisioned and missed out. And in fact, most municipalities on the Eastern Shore missed out. I think the only Eastern Shore of Maryland municipality that got funding, at least on the midshore, through the infrastructure program under President Obama was Federalsburg. So we've got to be ready moving forward to use some of this money for some infrastructure, and also to go ahead and replace those things that are needed to be replaced. With regard to the question that just came in, could some of the funds be used for police cameras in areas that have high crime? There are some cameras in place. I would imagine that some of the funding may be able to be used in that fashion, and that's something I'd have to discuss with Chief Lewis, and we could have a discussion with him to see where they would need additional cameras placed.
All right, thank you for those comments. We're going to move on here to another question. What are the plans to make the Greenwood Avenue corridor safe this summer?
Commissioner Cephas, I'll let you take this one first.
Yes. As I answered in the last question, the one thing that we need to do is when these funds become available, we definitely have to invest in our nonprofits, because it's going to take our nonprofits to make sure that we're able to meet the youth at their level, as well, as well as some of the adults that we have live in the city. That's I guess is part of the problem as well. As far as other levels of safety, I had a meeting with the it was an unofficial meeting. It was only maybe about three of us. It was myself, it was Commissioner Roche, and another gentleman from the committee. But we walked down the Greenwood Avenue corridor, and we looked at some of the traffic concerns as far as safety is concerned. Like, that street is extremely wide. So I'm not sure how soon we're going to have some sort of like presentation to try to make the street a little more safe, to try to calm it, because I definitely agree that Greenwood Avenue corridor, it's like a racetrack. It's an open field, whether you're on a dirt bike or in your car, or it's enough room if you're in a tractor trailer. If you want to go 50 miles per hour, you got plenty of room to do it. But that's essentially something that we have looked into. About 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting. We also looked at the intersection over there at Mace's Lane, Rigby Avenue and Washington Street. The State Highway Administration, they actually did a few studies, and what they came up with is something, but it's not exactly what we're looking for. They want to essentially take away 200 feet of parking on all four sides. I guess on each end of the intersection, to ensure that it gives the ability of drivers as well as pedestrians to be able to safely, cross through the intersection. So, we're working on many things. We have a lot of momentum going in this short time frame of 90 days. But that's essentially where we are. Another area that we looked at was on the Leonard's Lane, Cosby Avenue area, because at the old Racket Club building, which is now owned by Dorchester County, there's going to be a Boys and Girls Club that's going to be centralized there in that building. So we actually saw some safety concern issues with that as well, as far as with the youth on feet and then cars, because there's actually no sidewalks at all. Once you leave that building, and if you're walking towards the Washington Street area, towards the Foxtel housing development, no sidewalks. And we actually stood there and just watched people pushing baby strollers, kids walking, just about in the road. So we're very closely looking at that area, and we're coming up with some really good solutions, to essentially make sure that everyone is safe on foot, and not only safe on foot, but also to ensure that when it heats up, the trouble doesn't come. So, thank you.
I'll just follow up on that a little bit. I mean, I brought this up when we were talking about the infrastructure for priorities, and mentioned that, we have a lot of streets that don't have sidewalks. And as the commission president pointed out, people are walking on the streets, and that's just not safe. There are ways to slow down cars without speed bumps, but those are also an option. I know in Easton they have a few areas where crosswalks, they jut the curb out to stick into the road a little bit to make it obvious that there's a crosswalk, and it does indeed make you slow down. I mean, I drive one route like that every morning, and people slow down as soon as they come up to it. So there are solutions out there, and I think it's time we start implementing some of them here in Cambridge.
Our next question is the tragic murder last night, I believe Sunday, was not the first this year, but we have had years in the recent past with no homicides. What can be done?
I'll start by answering this. What needs to happen is, I think once people start giving names and giving descriptions and start what they call snitching, I'm willing to believe that some of these crimes will decrease. When you have a code that protects you from a crime, it gives you a sense of security. We need to break that sense of security. Like if you decide that you want to hurt another individual, in my opinion, I don't think you deserve protection. I think you deserve whatever consequence that goes with you making that decision. So that needs to be eliminated, for one. I think the other thing that needs to happen is we need to designate areas in our neighborhoods, where essentially we're going to decide, this is my neighborhood. I grew up on Greenwood Avenue. Maybe I wasn't seen there, as far as like in my later adult years, but from the age of 10 years old up until I graduated high school, I lived in a high rise at Greenwood Avenue. I lived on Cornish Drive. I lived in the duplexes. So that's my neighborhood. So that's what needs to happen. These people that live there, including myself, because I still call that home, we need to take our neighborhoods back. It's like if we gotta put up signs saying, like, you're not welcome here, crime is not welcome here, get out of whatever is necessary to take our streets back. And I'm the kind of person, I'm not just saying it because just to say it. I'm the type of person, I'm a doer. I was raised to be a doer, and it's time for us to take our streets back. And all this situation of no snitching, it just needs to stop. I'm extremely frustrated. But I will say, on a positive note, unfortunately, Mr. DeJory lost his life. But I will say this: it happened in full view of the cameras. I don't know how many cameras are there, but I can essentially say that I feel confident that hopefully on that video camera, that there'll be some information that can lead to arrest. I don't know where we are in the process, but I'm confident, and since it happened right there in front of the camera area, hopefully we can move forward and I guess get some justice, for this family and also the people who live in that community, to make them aware that we're going to do everything we can possibly do to make sure that those neighborhoods are safe, because everyone is entitled to a safe place to live. Every single person in the city of Cambridge is entitled to a safe place to live. No one should be bullied on any street, any block. You should have the freedom to go outside and just live your life without worries. Thank you.
So that night, first off, I guess I do want to point out, and I certainly don't want to sound petty in pointing this out, but that was the first homicide in Cambridge in 2021. There were a number last year. Thankfully, things slowed down a bit for 3 months, and unfortunately, this occurred Monday evening. That night, I was riding through town, and I often ride through different parts of the city that aren't my regular route home or whatever. But on the way home from work, I'll cut down a different street than normal, or I'll go a different way than normal, and then just put eyes on what's going on. And I was on the phone Monday evening around 5:30 or 6 o'clock with Chief Mark Lewis of Cambridge Police, and made a turn onto Cosby Avenue and drove up on an assault of a young man in progress. And there were 35 or 40 kids surrounding this guy as he was getting his head kicked, unconscious on the ground. And I hopped out and screamed, and Chief Lewis was on the phone. And I said, "You got to get officers here immediately." And police came. And but the reason I'm telling the story is because no one there, nobody called 911. Had I not driven by, had I not been on the phone with Chief Lewis, who knows how long until the individual that was being assaulted would have gotten medical assistance. And it comes back to this culture of stop snitching and no snitching. And I get that there's fear of retaliation, but if a whole community steps forward and does what's right, then there's not going to be a worry of retaliation against one, because you can't retaliate against the whole city doing the right thing. You can't retaliate against the whole neighborhood taking their streets back and doing what's right and protecting their neighbors and protecting their friends and protecting their family members. You know, the guy that got jumped was somebody's son, probably somebody's brother. He had friends, and as I understand, he's still in the hospital. Likewise with De Jour, he was a son. He had family. He had brothers. He had those that he cared for and those that cared for him. And now he's gone. And but ultimately, to ensure that another family, another group of friends doesn't suffer that kind of pain, people have got to step forward. And I know it's easier said than done, but I'm going to work out in the community. I'm going to go talk to people. And we're going to go and try to find ways. And this is not something that we can solve in the next month or 6 months, the fear of talking to police, but we've got to make people understand that the police force in the city of Cambridge is not there to show up and knock heads. They're there to try to ensure that your brother is going to live another week or another month or another 10 years or 50 years. They're not there to harm you. They're there to help. And we've got to ensure, we've got a commenter that's speaking to needing to have community policing in place. And I believe in that wholeheartedly. And so funding police so that we can actually get officers, so we can have a community policing force in place, got to do it. Got to pay the people to be here. And that goes back to paying city staff broadly. But we've got to have the officers in the community and seen as part of the community, not as a force that shows up and disappears only when problems arise.
Thank you, guys. We got a question from Hidea Thomas asking about, she said that there used to be block parties held by the Cambridge Police Department for the community to be able to meet the new members and create a sense of bonding with the police and the community. Would there be any way of bringing that back?
I mean, that's something I'd love to see come back. I'm a firm believer in community policing. But part of the issue we have now is that we lose officers, and you can't build those relationships if you're only here for a year or two and then move on to another department because the pay is better or the working conditions are easier. So it really is important that we, fund our police force and fund our officers especially, so that they don't leave. They stay here, build those relationships in the community, choose to live here, and build a life in their community that they serve. And doing block parties would be part of that.
And I would like to add on this as well. I will say Sergeant Patton of the Cambridge Police Department, he's actually the supervisor or the head person over community policing. He's very easy to talk to, and I throw so many ideas at him, and every idea I give him is the best idea. That's the response he gives me, and I'm sure he's like that with everybody. I think if we have people in the community that actually reach out to him to say, "Hey, Sergeant Patton, look, you know what? We have the youth. They're on the bikes. They're really active. What can we do for them? Can we have a barbecue for them every weekend? Can we host can we host maybe a parade for them? So it's also going to take the community standing up, taking some responsibility, and actually reaching out to Sergeant Patton, because he's one person, but I can tell you he's 120% for the community. So any ideas that you may have, please don't hesitate to reach out to Sergeant Patton. He needs help. He wants to help, and this is his community, and he believes in it.
So our last question will be from Chandra Chester. It says, is there a program to recruit locally in the community? Maybe a program through the high school or a local community college?
Cambridge Police has an Explorers program, and the Explorers program is for kids in the high school who have an interest in getting into law enforcement, to give them an opportunity to learn more, shadow with officers, take part in some activities, things like that. With COVID-19, like everything, with the schools being less regular, it's been difficult for the program to continue forward. We've got to really reinvest in it. Once things get to the point where we can staff it appropriately. The issue that exists, the state of Maryland, their policing standard requires that officers be 21. So what often happens is individuals will be in the Explorer program. They're excited about it. They want to become an officer, only to then have 3 years out in the workforce, and they either find another career or they move forward with something else, or because they aren't able to get more involved more immediately, something foolish happens. And it oftentimes can't be or isn't something all that terribly egregious, and something that, anyone with some sense would say it was a child, a juvenile act, and they'll move past that. But again, because of Maryland state licensing requirements for officers, it jams us up with regard to keeping the kids involved. That's something that hopefully at the state level, there can be some adjustment and some changes moving forward, because there are some really good people who decide to join the military or as I say, go into another line of work because they've got to wait 3 years. I'm not certain why we can arm someone and send them halfway around the world, but we can't train them to come be part of their community and part of the solution here. But that's the standard that the state of Maryland has in place right now.
I can tell you something I know for certain that Sergeant Patton is doing. Although it's not Chesapeake College, but he is actively recruiting. I believe he went to Anne Arundel Community College, whereas there, the people, they're actually able to enroll themselves into the police academy, and then upon graduation, assuming that they're able to pass the background checks, they can essentially go to any police department that they want to. So Sergeant Patton is very active as far as recruiting. He hasn't been successful locally, and that's because the way it's structured at Warwick Community College, as far as I'm concerned, was, as far as the knowledge that I know, is you have to be recruited from a police department. But he has taken that route. He was able to find some recruits from Anne Arundel Community College. And the idea that I threw around at Sergeant Patton, as well as with Chief Lewis, was maybe a cadet program. I know the Maryland State Police, they have an active cadet program, whereas as soon as you graduate from high school, age 18, they send you off to the Maryland State Police Training Academy. Obviously, you can't have a weapon, but there are still other duties that you're able to fulfill. And something that I learned is, I learned that if we're able to find some youth at that age of 18 years old, and if they're committed, and if they want to be a part of this program, from my understanding of it, is they will present something, I believe, to the city commission, or I don't know the exact process, maybe the city commissioner or maybe the city manager, and then we can essentially move from there. But the other downside about that is the lack of funds, the lack of resources we have to pay them. But I guess the benefit of this is with the American Rescue Plan, we can essentially use we can use those funds to pay these individuals under the age of 21, so we can move them forward into a cadet program. So that's in the very beginning of stages, but we have to get those people identified first.
Thank you so much, guys. And that's all of our time for today. And as we close today's broadcast, our gratitude to the mayor and commissioners for providing this open forum to engage with the community. A reminder that this broadcast will be repeated this coming Sunday at 1 p.m. here on WHCP, and the video will be housed on Facebook and YouTube on WHCP Radio's streaming channels. Thanks to the production team. As always, special thanks to Technical Director Julian Jackson. I'm Marco Garcia.
And I'm Dave Wooten. Until our next town hall broadcast at high noon on Wednesday, May the 5th, go out and do all you can to make Cambridge and Dorchester County a better place to live.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.